Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Pilosopo podcast. I'm your host. And today, our guest is a first level judge of the municipality of Sibonga. She's also a former media woman, a former newscaster, a former news media lady. Her name is Haide Acuna.
Hello,
Hi, Heidi.
GB. Hi,
Thanks for
I'm
thanks
so
for doing
happy
this.
to be here with you tonight. I hope you don't ask too hard questions.
No, the reason why I really wanted to talk to you because I knew that you came from AbsCbn. You also came from print media, and
Mm,
you're also a lawyer. So, with this shitstorm that's brewing with AbsCbn, culminated by the denial of the
mm.
renewal of the franchise, I think ikaw ang the best person to talk to in my list of friends. So I figured I should get in touch with Heidi. Our
Yeah,
topic
so
today, Heidi, is freedom or press freedom in the new normal.
yes.
Heidi's, we've been around the block for a long time to know that, there was a time when media was under attack. A few years ago during the martial law era back in the 80s and all that stuff.
In the
And
70s, yeah.
this moment in history now feels eerily similar, but not quite.
Mm,
With the recent developments in Philippine news media, the Rappler incident, and now ABS-CBN, um, you have a sense that something is amiss, that media is under attack, but it didn't quite feel like the way it once was back in the martial law era. Um, Before we get to that, Heights, I'd like to ask you, since the ruling has just been made a couple of days ago, and the people are still talking about it until now. Can you make it simple for us laymen, Heights, so Attorney Haide Acuna? Explain to us the ruling. Exactly what did Congress say? What was their decision, pretty
So,
much?
uh, ABS was shut down last May 5 because their franchise expired March 20. I think I got that right. Okay. May 5, NTC shut them down, and then so they have pending applications for a 25-year franchise. So it was referred to the Legislative Committee on Legislative Franchise in the House of Representatives. So in that committee, they have this thing called the Technical Working Group. So nag-hearing sila, they had 12 days of hearing. So several people were invited to shed light on issues that had to be resolved before the committee could vote. So there were several issues like the nationality of EL3 or Gabi Lopez, the issues on foreign ownership via the PDRs, and then the violations that were allegedly committed by ABS, tax issues, labor violations, things like that, and issues on bias reporting. So the technical working group and then came up with a report. It's a 41-page report, basically summarizing everything that transpired in the 12-day hearing and all the documentary exhibits or evidence that were submitted before the committee in support of and those that were against ABS-CBN. And then in the end, the TWG recommended the denial of their application for franchise. So the committee voted, and so ang ending, 70 voted against the grant of the franchise, and then 11 voted for the issuance of the legislative franchise.
So
So
you just
basically,
rattled
ABS
off to
lost.
us the reasons why ABS-CBN was shut down, the questionable citizenship of Mr. Gabi Lopez, and I hear other stories about their tax issues and so on and so forth.
Yes, there were several issues. I think it reached eight key
Mhm.
issues that were raised against ABS-CBN. So one of which was the citizenship of Gabi Lopez kay masid si klaro kung of
Filipino
course
din.
under
Dual
the
citizen.
under the 1935 Constitution, Filipino siya if your parents are both Filipinos when you were born, but he was also born in the US, which recognizes place of birth as the basis for your nationality. And then under the TWG report, among other things, they cited that it was he belatedly applied for recognition of his Filipino citizenship only in 2001. And then for so many years, he used only his US passport. And then they were citing also the fact that in in 2016, EL3 or Mr. Gabi Lopez voted in the presidential elections in the US. So effectively, they're saying na paano siya? He may be dual citizen, but mostly American po siya. Because they
So
also
was that the
cited
primary cause of
questions.
their closure?
No, not.
Was it the primary cause?
It's not the primary.
What what
There were
what would be the primary cause?
there were the 8 key issues that the TWG pointed out in their report. So there was also the issue on the PDR. It's an investment instrument issued by ABS-CBN Holdings, which they said allowed foreign control and ownership into into an industry which is supposed to be 100% Filipino. So that's also cited. And then there's the issue on violations regarding the selling of TV Plus boxes, the DG boxes. So
Okay.
and then the issue on Amcara. Amcara is a separate entity which has a separate congressional franchise. Amcara is Studio 23, but they're saying that ABS-CBN was able to broadcast even after they were shut down. Effectively, ABS-CBN is also Studio 23, so they're saying that Amcara is just a dummy. Whereas siya kanang the way out for ABS when they were shut down in May 5, they broadcast in the frequency that was granted to Amcara. And then another issue that was raised against them was the TWG really took pains explaining why it was unethical for ABS to have evaded paying, although legal. Our laws allow for tax incentives, etc., and ways of tax avoidance. They said that dako ra kayo ang difference dapat gibayaran ni ABS if they did not try to avoid all these taxes. And then also they cited bias reporting, inappropriate program content, political meddling, things like that. Daghan kayo siya. Actually, I would rather that people read the entire 41-page report.
So
and
all of those things that you
decide for
mentioned,
themselves.
did they commit a crime? Was there a crime that was committed? Was there an infraction that was there a law that was violated? Because you said tax avoidance, although it's probably not moral, but it's not illegal.
Yeah.
When you say the bias programming, who makes an assertion that a program is biased? What are the laws governing bias programming? Isn't that the personality of the people behind a media outfit that reflects their biases? And isn't that what programming is all about? Because we understand what's going on in some parts of the world. The key example is, for example, the United States. There's a liberal news media and there's a conservative news media. There's Fox News or CNN.
Yes.
So these two opposing news networks have opposing political views. They're polar opposites. The Fox News is the Donald Trump sounding board, and of course the CNN are the liberals news of choice. So it is happening all over the world. Who gets to decide what is biased and what's not? I mean, isn't that the right of the news outfit to deliver news as he or she sees fit?
I think what every news organization must remember is to be fair. Of course, they have their own slant, they have their own bias, especially when they do the editorial part of the news. So they're not prohibited from making that editorial because it's part of their free speech. So if you feel that you're aggrieved by a certain newscast or a certain article, the remedy really is to file libel or file
Yeah,
a
exactly. Yeah.
complaint or a letter to the editor, diba? Those are the things, not really a shutdown.
There
And
are
then as
mechanisms
to,
to protect that.
yes, to protect an individual. But they also, the PWG report cited really heavily on the incident or political advertisement of
Yeah, yeah,
President Duterte that was not
yeah,
released, and then they received the money, did not even return
yeah.
it. Also, there are issues there on the legality of the return of the station and the state of ABS-CBN's assets that were supposed to be owned by the government through the PCGG. There were some the TWG pointed out some irregularities there. So what I'm saying is, I think everyone before they make an opinion, I think they should just read both sides. They should read the TWG report in its entirety and also read the primer produced by ABS-CBN. So para balance. Okay, don't just base your opinion on memes produced by both sides.
Mm-hmm.
So I think even if it's 41 pages, you really have to make an effort to read it. So I
But
think
there
ABS-CBN
are,
is not kanang beyond reproach. Daghan siya og issues good that should be tackled head on. But I would hazard into saying na at the risk of kanang getting scolded by some people na I don't think a closure is the appropriate action. They should have given ABS a chance to rectify whatever needed rectifying, like the irregularities or the TWG noted. May nana. So a closure man good at this time is a bit tone deaf because we're facing a pandemic. So para nako murag
so
dili
you know,
dili gid siya angay.
it's good that you mentioned that. I was actually
Mm-mm.
aghast when I saw
Mm-mm.
Congress talk about ABS-CBN for 12
Mm-mm.
consecutive days. I mean, like, where are our priorities? All hands should be on deck. People are dying, and I see them fighting over a media, ABS-CBN. I mean, like, maybe this battle could have been fought some other time. Why now? I mean, like, I felt violated, to be honest, because all of these congressmen should be working on trying to survive this pandemic. And why are we talking about ABS-CBN? Who the hell cares about a TV channel if everybody's dead? You know what I mean?
Mm. You know what I would have done if I were them, but I'm not them. So I think a win-win solution would have been grant them a provisional franchise
Mm-hmm.
pending a more extensive deliberation on the 25-year franchise application. I think that was the original plan in May, but then that proposal was scuttled. So they just went directly for the ruling on the 25-year franchise. But that would have been the better way for everyone. If they really wanted ABS to get its act together, they should have given it a chance and not totally foreclose any possibility of having their franchise renewed, especially now that so many people are suffering and there are 11,000 more people who will lose their jobs.
So do you think that Philippine news media hides is under attack?
Well, it is always under attack, but this one, this is they say that it sends a chilling effect because if someone could take down the Philippines' biggest network, then how much more a fledgling radio station, for example, or a news outlet or may na ba. So they're targeting the biggest, so everyone will just toe the line. But of course, it's different from the martial law years, because when they shut down ABS-CBN in the 70s, totally wala broadcast. But this time, when they shut down ABS in May 5 of this year, they were able to go to a different platform, which is digital. They went online, they went to the internet, they're on Twitter, Facebook. So dito full court press sila dito, and they also even use the other station, Studio 23, owned by Amcara. So yun. So they were more, and then technology afforded them other avenues of reaching their audience, even with a shutdown, even with the aggressive move to deny them a franchise. So, muna yung naka-different sa 1970s na shutdown of ABS and the shutdown during this era.
Well, the media landscape back then was also totally and completely different, right, from where we are now in media. In fact, I was going to say that, media was already, business in traditional media has already been waning. In fact, I think in a manner of speaking, traditional media as we know it, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, it was losing grip already with the audience, because we were losing it to citizen journalists, people who just post on social media, and people were getting more and more their news, not anymore from traditional media outfits like newspapers or television, but from the internet, from Facebook and websites, and from Twitter and all that stuff. So the time in which media is under duress is already a time when media, with or without intervention from the government, is already under attack from its fledgling audience, right? So what does this mean to traditional news media, Heides, when in fact their profits are already waning, and plus we are under the impression that it is under attack? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, basically, it will have to adapt, otherwise it will die. So they will have to deal with technology and then the internet. They will have to deal with everyone becoming a content creator. So the media outlets will have to distinguish themselves. So what makes them different from the online content creator who can just create their own, use the same platform and create their own content? So they will have to distinguish themselves. So what will distinguish the traditional media when they use the internet as platform and generate content? I guess their years of experience, which a regular content creator does not have, and then the discipline of verification and looking for fact-checking, double-checking everything. So they should be able to maximize that discipline to their advantage. Now, when it comes to life and death information, people will still go back to the traditional media as the main source. Okay, diba, like for example, if someone dies, and then to make sure that it's not fake news, they still go to the ABS website, the GMA website, the Inquirer website, even if they hate these traditional media. Kasi if it comes out in these traditional media outlets online, so it must be true, diba? Something like that.
How important was ABS-CBN news media to the Filipino in terms of giving them the news that they want? And after you answer the question, Heides, maybe you can tell me, how important is traditional news media now in the greater scheme of things, now that there's so many so-called news outfits out there on social media, on Facebook, citizen journalists? How important is traditional news media? First question is, how important was ABS-CBN in the news media landscape in the Philippines? And will we miss ABS-CBN news media when it's no longer there, when the TV patrol will no longer be there? Don't we have many news media shows out there anyway?
Well, TV patrol is still there. It's just that they're in a different platform. They're online. They're digital. But then, how important was ABS during that time when there was no internet? Well, they had reporters, especially in the provinces. The biggest strength of ABS-CBN News really, before the
To reach.
internet came, was they had regional stations all over the Philippines. From north to south, they invested in local news. So when something broke out, like let's say in a far-flung place in Surigao or in Mindanao or even in Cebu, pag-una ang reporter sa ABS kay in place naman ang ilang regional network. So we were something happens, something big happens, we're there. And then they invested even in putting a chopper in the Visayas based in Cebu. So if something inaccessible, something big happens in an inaccessible place, we're there. We're still there because we can access it from the sky. So that was that's how important ABS was, because we could go to places that the audience could not go. So mahug nga, we were a primary source of information, especially during disasters. Disasters good kana. And also when disaster strikes, we were not only a primary source of information, nahimusad siyang murag focal point for people to contribute and help a place that's been hit by disaster, because of the trust and confidence of its audience. They had no doubt about giving money or donations via ABS-CBN, because they were sure that it will get to the places that really needed it most. So nahimo siyang two-pronged ba nga. We were not only delivering news, ABS also became a conduit between the giver and the receiver of relief during
You're making
times
it
of
sound like
disaster.
it was you're making it sound like it was from a bygone era. But the truth is, people still need choppers to go to places, right? I mean, nothing has changed. So,
Yes, but
so
you know
the
what?
role of ABS-CBN now, as compared to when you were around 2 years ago or a few years ago, it's still the same. I mean, like, we still need to go to a place physically to cover a news, right?
No, it's different. It's different
What do you
now,
mean? Like, if
Jiggy.
there's a typhoon now in some part of Mindanao, and I need to have a competent person cover that news, the day after, I'll fly that person in a chopper to Mindanao. And a citizen journalist can't do that.
You know what happened, Jiggy? The smartphone. Kasi, di ba, before, phones could not upload videos, and then
Yeah.
it could not connect to the internet. But when smartphones came, so anybody, like for example, something big happens in an island, a remote island in the middle of, between Cebu and Bohol. So there's a ABS-CBN viewer there with a smartphone, so they don't have to wait for the chopper to fly there. So they can that person on that island, real time, can broadcast the video of what's happening there. So they don't even have to wait for the reporter. So what the reporter needs to do now is call that person who took the video, ask him, don't give it to GMA, huh? Or ask him for details, things like that. So every person with a smartphone now becomes a data gatherer. Maybe not necessarily a citizen journalist, but a data gatherer, a raw data gatherer for the journalists who will process it for actual broadcast, for
You were in the
verification, things
actual
like
you
that.
were in the actual newscast in ABS-CBN local, right, in Cebu, right, Heidi?
Yes, I did ABS-CBN news since starting 1997, and then I left in 2012. Also,
Wow.
I worked as reporter, producer, and then off-cam talent, and then on-cam talent.
Explain to the viewer the process in which the steps, the work that is required to have a news story come out in primetime evening news. What kind of vetting, what kind of research, what kind of numbers of people are involved in coming up with a news item, for example, just one news item, for example?
Well, for me, minimum of 3 people. Minimum of 3 people to verify. So, because you cannot just rely on one source, diba? Because you could be lying. So, you have to fact check, double check. So, it would be good to have at least 3 sources. And then if you're in broadcast, of course, video. If you don't have it on video, it's so hard to package a story. So it's harder. It's harder if you're reporting for TV because of that requirement. Whereas in print, you can capture it by writing it in prose, diba? Words. And then it doesn't really require video. But now with the internet, even newspapers are required to have video content. So internet really totally changed everything, because as you can see, the websites of our local newspapers, they even have video content now. So it's
So
everybody's
you mentioned that you
requirement
needed
to have
3
video.
sources, right? To make sure that the source wasn't lying and all that stuff. So
Yes.
you have to get to those 3 sources before it makes the headlines, before it gets to the evening news.
3 sources, and then you submit it to your editor, the desk editor or your news manager, and hey, I have a story, this is my story. And then you lobby for your story. You want it to be the top story of the day because I have this information, this whole package, I have video, it's complete. And then I was able to get the other side. So you basically lobby for our story. And then
describe to us that scene in ABS-CBN Heights, if you don't mind. Is everything okay? Are you getting sleepy, Heidi? I'm
it's
sorry.
okay. No. We call during my time. I don't know how.
Describe to us a scene when you try to sell a story that you'd like to make in the headlines in the evening edition of TV Patrol.
But I don't know how they do it now. But before we would submit gist of our story to our desk editor, and then so kinsa mong ipang interview ana kompleto, what kind of video do we have. And then at the end, when we get to the station, so si Rico maingon siya, oh, I have a better story, I got this angle and ana. So it was a competition among reporters who had a better story and whose story was most relevant for that day. So it's the news manager or the news editor who decides who gets top story number 2, number 3, number 4, who gets after the first commercial break, things like that. So, and then you accept it if once the news manager decides, oh, this should be the top story, you accept it. It's a manager's decision. And so then there are stories also that require you to be live, be reporting live with no packaged video. So you report as it happens because it's a breaking news story or it's happening right when you're having the newscast also.
So has it happened to you ever before, Heights, that you had a news item that you were working on and it didn't see the headlines that same day?
Well, yes, because of time constraints, we're only 30 minutes and then, or sometimes 40 minutes, and then we have to air a specific number of commercials, diba? And then sometimes we have to synchronize the local newscast with what's airing in the national newscast. So if the program that's airing in Manila decides to finish early, so we have to wrap up early also without sacrificing the airing of the commercial. So we'll have to drop stories that are not so important. So sometimes the weather story gets dropped, the star news gets dropped, so things like that. So that's why you push all the important stories in the first segment, in the topmost part of the newscast, because when you have to cut or trim down at the bottom, the most important things have been aired already. It's like that. That's how it was before.
Everything has to be cramped in that 30-minute window, right? For local news and maybe another 30 minutes for national news.
Yes.
These are the events that happened during the day or a day before the news cycle, right?
Yes, that's one news cycle before. But now the news cycle is like every 30 minutes, every hour. It's more demanding now because the news cycle is 24 hours and then several cycles in that 24 hours.
In fact, there are news channels that are 24 hours, the CNNs and the BBCs and the Al Jazeera's and the and the Fox News, right? So these are 24-hour news channels.
Yes, pero you know what? About cycles, mapildi ang once a day na newscast sa Facebook page, like let's say Cebu Flash Report, like Sunog, for example. Before we used to cover sunog ang kani. But if you're on Facebook and you hear ay may nasunog. Dili na kamo adto sa ABS kay unya pa man iyang news at 5 o'clock. You want to know it now at 1 p.m. kay karon ang sunog. So where do you go? Either you go to CBN, ay wala pa na break. You go to Sansar, wala pa na break. You go to Cebu Flash Report, naanay ko video kaagad ang ilahang contributor. Because they accept video contributions from everyone. That's why they're so fast. It's so hard to compete with that kind of speed.
Yeah, we have to work with the speed of the internet, right? But you mentioned earlier that there are still advantages of traditional media, like for example, what you mentioned earlier, experience of the media, traditional media outfit, right? And of course, they're probably better writers, and they're probably better, at delivering the news, right?
Yes, that and years of developing goodwill with sources, news sources, because even if you're let's say a citizen journalist, you can't have access to all these people you need to talk to because you need credentials, diba? So there are stories where that the citizen journalists really can beat that traditional media, like let's say sunog, disaster, mga ana. But for stories that require access to like government offices, things like that,
smart people like you,
ABS will have an edge, diba?
Or the traditional media outfits like ABS-CBN.
Yes, but so, that has not stopped other Facebook pages from doing investigative work, even if they don't have the traditional media pass. You just have to be more enterprising.
Heis, to be honest with you, I haven't been watching a lot of television these past couple of years, maybe more than 5 years or 10 years. I haven't been really seriously watching television, so I don't really miss any news program. It's my mom and my dad who still watch. What's that guy's name? The guy who never dies, Provinciano, and the newscasts of ABS-CBN and all that stuff. But to be honest with you, personally, I don't miss that. But I think I feel when I read Facebook that the Philippines does miss or will miss the absence of a network like ABS-CBN, not just for their news, but for their entertainment and teleseries as well. Is there really a vacuum now that ABS-CBN has been removed from the equation? Is there a vacuum that needs to be filled? And who do you think will fill that void?
Well, number one, let's clarify. They have been removed from free media. Free media, which requires legislative franchise, diba, for their frequency. But they're still around in the internet. The problem with being around only in the internet is, number one, who can access the internet? Only those with, or who can access TV on the internet? Only those with connection. So not, if you look at the statistics, kinsa ra may connection yun only in the urban areas. But in the sa mga bukid, dili na sila ka-access sa ABS kay wala may internet sa bukid, di ba? So, they have been deprived. Areas with no internet cannot watch their usual programs in ABS. So, that's one thing. Tapos second, our internet connection in the Philippines, even if you do have one, is very slow. So, lisod sa kayo. So, what you do is, dili na lang kamutanaw kay lisod man i-access ang channel online. So who will fill the void or the vacuum? Well, of course, there are still other stations, GMA, and the other free TV stations. But then they say that lahi ra siya quality ay ABS because number one, you grew up with the station, so it has become a habit for so many Filipinos already. And then number two, kanang lahi ra gyud ang entertainment sa ABS. So unbeatable sila sa entertainment. But I think sa news, pare-pareho ra na sila sa GMA and ABS on caliber, things like that. I wouldn't say
it looks like it's just a feature.
Behind.
It looks like a feature of technology, right? If there are areas that ABS-CBN could reach and the other news media outfits or TV channels could not reach, you can make the argument that the government can fill in and make towers and make satellites that can reach those far-flung areas.
Well, hopefully internet gets better for everyone. So we democratize access to information, not just access to ABS's digital platform, but especially now that we really need to get online because we can't be together in one place. I'm talking about learning for kids, things like that. So, para na ako di sayop sad yun po ingnon nga murag over sad mo ingon nga walay franchise ang ABS so ma-deny og access everyone because there's still RMN, di ba? There's still RMN for radio because I know for a fact that in Cebu and in Bohol, in our farm in Bohol, they listen to other stations, not ABS-CBN, things like that. But definitely, people who like ABS, who traditionally watch and get their information from ABS, there will be a big void and big vacuum that needs to be filled. So you deprive them of that, which I hope ABS can ABS or GMA can fulfill in the meantime while ABS is trying to get the denial of their franchise reconsidered. I'm sure they have other legal remedies in mind or other strategies in mind. Or maybe they will just ride out this administration and try again, things like that. So it's not the end of the world, definitely for ABS. They will find a way. If not this year, maybe next year, but they will find a way. They will not stop. So we'll just have to be patient. Those who really want to watch their news and their entertainment from ABS.
Attorney, with the waning profits of traditional media, we have a pandemic, happening, and the perception of media being under attack. How does it look for the new normal as far as news media is concerned? Does it look bleak to you? Are you hopeful of what will become of news media in the Philippines with all of these things happening at the same time?
You know what? Filipinos are very creative, very resilient. So while it's true that traditional media is under attack, not just on issues of freedom of speech, but more importantly, on issues of economics, diba? So they cannot survive without advertising money, which has funneled all of their money online. Mm-hmm. So that kind of attack is, I think, much harder to with. That's why we see...
Yeah, exactly. And the pandemic, of course.
Yeah, yes. That's why we see so many of the traditional media outlets, especially in print, letting go of people who have been with them for so many years. They're trimming their operation to just online na lang, wala na newspapers. So it's a dying medium. But the need for information will always be there. It will not die because we need to, every day we make decisions, we have to base it on information and we have to get it from somewhere, from some credible and reliable source. So these content creators from the traditional media will have to find a way to make their presence felt online or through the new platforms. That's a challenge for them. And I think they will be able, given enough time and enough support and resources and investors, they will find their way, siguro good. And then, especially the local news sources, you cannot just remove them from the picture because there are some issues that cannot be covered by like a national platform like CNN Philippines, diba? Or Rappler. They will have to, there are some decisions na local that will have to be made by people like us and we'll have to rely on local news sources. So the traditional media outlets like Sunstar, Freeman, CDN, and all the local radio stations like Y101 will have to step up and, evolve ba? Because people need you to provide information for them, reliable information. You just have to find a way to make it accessible to them through a new platform, so which is digital. Because we don't want to rely on just anyone, because we want someone whom we can trust. Because when we make decisions, especially high stakes decision, like klase ron or unsa, we want someone na kasaligan, di ba?
Right.
Not just
You want
our friends
credibility.
on Facebook. Things like that.
Although you can get credibility fast on Facebook if you do your reporting right? Hides, we have a lot of. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it takes consistency, and
Yeah, exactly.
trust takes years to build.
Yeah, exactly. Hides, we have a lot of media men out there, especially former news former newscaster that you are. We have a lot of people who are working in not just in ABS-CBN, but the other media outfits. What is your message to them, Hides, with regards to where we are going as a nation in terms of freedom of the press, which is of course in the time of this pandemic? What is your message to everyone out there?
My message is to continue to be vigilant, not just for the media workers, but everyone. Be vigilant, demand more from your officials, and then when they try to stifle your right to speak up, then speak up some more, and then hopefully people will rally behind people who are trying to speak up, things like that. So for our media workers, try to be creative, try to adapt to new changes. Don't be afraid of new technology and new ways of doing things, because that's the only way to survive. Otherwise, you become a museum piece. So if you want to survive, you will have to adapt. You will have to find ways to get your information out there, your message out there, to reach your audience. So the internet offers a lot of opportunities. It has killed so many industries in our news industry or in our media industry, but it also offers a lot of opportunities if you're creative enough. So don't try to hold on to the past. So look into the future and learn from young people, because they have a lot to teach you. So I get this attitude mangod sometimes from the old media persons like myself, they dismiss bitaw the young persons, the young content creators. You should just watch and learn from them, because they can teach you a lot. You'll be surprised.
And
So you
vice
can,
versa too, right?
yes, and vice versa. You can teach them your institutional knowledge. They can teach you the new tricks, diba? So you can meet halfway and maybe become partners even. So yun, why not partner with someone who's effective with the young, and then you serve as the guide as to what kind of content that needs to get out there, things like that. There's so many collaborations you can do. And
Okay.
then do not be afraid to speak up, ka na lang, Kyud. I think maybe that's why I agreed to be interviewed, although lisod-lisod naman gyud kay judge naman ka, but basically that's it. Do not be afraid to speak up. And I think I hope there are some issues in the PWG report that are Paranako should be assailed. But I hope they find a way to assail some of the points that were raised here, because I find them to be incorrect. To put it mildly, I hope they're able to find remedies to correct these things. Or ano siya.
Okay, thank you so much. Former ABS-CBN newscaster, now a judge in the municipality of Sibonga, Attorney Haide Acuna. Should I have called you Judge Haide Acuna?
No, because I'm not here as a judge. I'm just here as a
Okay,
video watcher and
okay.
and former media person. I hope I was able to help out and made sense.
You
It should
totally
be.
made sense, Hides, and I think we should do this more often. Maybe when they have other legal stories that I'd like covered, maybe I'll call you again and disturb you over there in paradise in Sibonga.
Yes, it is paradise here. I'm so lucky to be here.
I know,
So
right?
you're in the city? Are you in Cebu City?
Yeah, I am in Cebu City. and things are also very peaceful here, but not for long. I think hopefully things will be less strict after the 15th ECQ level of quarantine that we have here in Cebu City. Haide
Yes.
Acuna, thank you so much. It is always a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm glad I was able to have a longer conversation with you this time around in this particular podcast. Thank you so much, Haide.
Thank you, Jiggy.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Stay safe.